State your name for me, please.
Tyrone Cowart, Cowart.
Okay. Tyrone Cowart. Is it Cowart or Cowart?
Well, we pronounce it Cowart.
Cowart?
So yeah, then some pronounce it Cowart. So
Right, okay, I understand.
mm,
Um, you lived in Titusville when?
uh, practically all my life. Uh, except for married life. I grew up in Titusville. From 49 till I got married. Uh, See, I married in 71. Oh, I did have a brief stint into Los Angeles, California with my sisters and brothers. I had sisters and brothers out there. And Titusville is just home where the home house was. We stayed on opposite side. The one time we stayed on the the rented houses on the if you're coming from let's say coming up to be on the coming off 6th Avenue going down coming down to Iota, coming down Iota would have been on the right hand side. If you're coming up, it'd have been on the left hand side.
What street was that?
Iota Avenue.
Iota Avenue.
Yes.
Uh, Talk to me about life on your street growing up. See, how old were you then? Was that your formative years?
Uh-huh. Yes. Uh, when I stayed, when we stayed on the side where the rented houses was. Uh, I think I was around 12, 13 when we moved across the street. My father, he never drove, and my mother, she never drove. So I did have older siblings. My brother and sister. Well, I had three brothers, four brothers that did drive. So that's you know, the transportation. Most of the time we did a lot of walking. You know, bus, and I really didn't get on the. We really didn't ride the bus that much because it was 14 of us.
Life in Titusville back in those days. Do you remember it? How might you describe it? And I've talked to others who've talked about Titusville having so much of what folks would have needed.
Correct. It was beautiful life to me because it wasn't no fuss, uh, fighting, anything. Most people that was around on our street, around through Titusville, was church going people, and we all of us didn't belong to the same church. We had several different churches in Titusville. Because like the people that I lived next door to when we was on the opposite side of the street before my father bought a home, we was one of them, and they went to St. Mark's down the street, CMA, and we went to St. Mark's on the next street on Kappa. So we had peoples that belonged to New Pilgrim on the south side. We had peoples that belonged to uh, Green Liberty, and so it was several churches in Titusville, as you know or would know, and that's the way life was. But we knew the peoples and what churches most of people on Iota and through Titusville went to.
I've been told that, and I don't know if you would remember, the conveniences that were in Titusville, stores, and the like. Talk to me about that, if you would.
Okay, we had we had two stores on the street, which both was Caucasian stores. We had a store called Mary's Store, which would have been the first store if you're coming from Memorial Park going down Iota. The second store would have been Sam's store. That's the second store that's below, down on Iota also. We had uh, Green Front, which was ran by, we always call it, the owner of the store, Mr. Tony. And then we had the meat market across 6th Avenue, because Green Front was on 6th Avenue. And trying to think of it, we didn't have any black stores in that community, not back then. Everything over there was white. And in the community, we could walk to a place called Dodge Bakery. I don't know whether you will remember that or not. We also had, we could walk to, we had different places and different ways to get there, but most of the time we walked. So I was trying to think of another store or something another over that way. But the ones that I truly remember was Mary's store was the first store. We used to buy cookies, 2 for a penny, and we used to go to Sam's store. And well, when his wife was down there, he raised most of his children come up at that store with him, and also at Green Front store on 6th Avenue. He used to let us charge groceries and stuff down there at that store.
You said you don't remember any black-owned businesses. Some people were telling me about a doctor's office or a dentist or something.
Okay. Now, the only black doctor that I knew in Titusville was Dr. Plump, which is my birth doctor, and you can imagine how. And then when I got grown and married, I returned back to Dr. Plump. Dr. Plump was my son's doctor, my wife's doctor when she was pregnant with my son. And I was trying to think, I can't remember any other black doctors in Titusville besides Dr. Plum.
I remember vaguely there being a bowling alley in Titusville, and I was reminded that there was another one. There were 2 of them.
Yes, it was. The one on Theater Avenue, that was called Star Bowl. The second one was the Honey Bowl, which was down in Loveland Village, child. That was just an outlet, and then I said I was practically grown when we went around there, because when they first, I remember one of the first proprietors that was over the Star Bowl was Pete Chapman. I don't know whether you knew him or not, but Pete Chapman, he ran the Star Bowl when they moved, because he used to be up to Memorial Park. So, and the Honey Bowl, I couldn't tell you who ran that one, but of course we had a bowling alley up there and a bowling alley down in Loveland Village to go to.
And a movie theater?
Movie theater. It was a movie theater, but it was never open. I think it was on 6th Avenue South, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was on 6th Avenue South, but that was been the only movie theater over in Titusville. So, but I say, that's just from vague memories, because I could tell, said was my sisters. I had older sisters and brothers, so I'd say that's about stick to that.
Those are things that they might have experienced, but
yes, correct.
Again, they were before your time.
Correct.
And you kind of alluded to this a moment ago, but I'll go back to it. The feel of living in Titusville, I get the sense that it was kind of like an extended family.
Yes, everyone in that part of the community knew one another. From from let's say from 6th Avenue or Apple Street, because all of the streets up on that end, they are Apple, they from Alpha Mega, uh, Theta, all those streets are alphabetic name.
The Greek letters.
Yeah, the Greek letters. That's what I'm trying to get out. So, but anyway, we knew uh, people's from all around that area. We had like I say, if we didn't move around from street to street, we always had Memorial Park to go to. And like I said, one time when they first opened Memorial Park up, and they put the swimming pool in, you couldn't go up there during the summertime, and it'll be 100, 200 children or kids out there in the water, and then it came that time when they shut it all down. It had something to do with the segregation thing. That's where we started running into the second. My younger brother and them, they went swimming. They went to Homewood. That's the only place they could swim, But during my time, when we wanted to go swim, when I was uh, 10 years old, I had to go down. We called a place called Big Tank. It was across 6th Avenue, and it had clear water, and we get in the ditch down there. And then, with Titusville, it had numerous of ditches and creeks and things that ran through it. So we go down there, we'd catch minnows and see frogs and snakes and stuff down there, and but that's what we did for summer, and then Jack said every kid that was in the particular community, we all gathered at Memorial Park.
You may have just answered my question. What is your most fun memory of living in Titusville?
Okay, getting to know my friends, people that I already knew. We grew up in Titusville, especially on Iota. On Iota, we grew up like brothers and sisters to one another. It wasn't a house from Memorial Park down to what I'm gonna call it the first street light, when we had street light, that we didn't know one another. Because like I say, I knew the Scotts, I knew the Colemans, I knew the Freemans, I knew, and they all knew the Cowarts, and like I said, we knew the Lawsons. We knew anybody that moved to Titusville or came into Titusville. We knew the Jacksons and people like that. We knew each other, one another. We could knock on one another's door any time of day or evening, and sit down and break bread with one another. And stuff like that. If I go down there, if we get two cooking and one of the friends go with us, I had to, I share my cookie. That's, so.
Who were your heroes as a child?
My heroes as a child. I'm a cartoon person, and I love cartoons when I was coming up. I knew the Lone Rangers, I said Cowboys. I knew the Supermans series when they came on. I watched the wrestling. That was one of my father's greatest program. He wouldn't miss wrestling, and that's back when Tojo Yamamoto and all those guys was into that, But my oldest brother, I got to go to a live wrestling match. Went to the auditorium down on 8th Avenue. That's where I first saw my first live wrestling match down there. And a guy, Lynn Rossi, Bearcat Brown was wrestling back then, because I think they had one or two blacks back then.
When I say hero, I'm gonna change up a little.
Okay.
Were there any adults, grown-ups, to whom you looked up and say, I really admire that person. I really respect that person. Maybe even I want to be like that person when I grow up.
Several. We had a guy. My father was for one, and and I tell you this little bit about my father. My father worked at a place called Ingalls Iron Works for over 20 years. Never missed a day. Never missed a day. He walked to work because we stayed so close to the job. He walked home. My father had more gardens in Titusville at his older age. And that's starting from anywhere from 50 on up till the day till he died in the 80s. When he died, Daddy had gardens from his yard across the street to the backyards to the houses across the street, gardens across 6th Avenue, up behind what used to be Circle Inn store up there. So I'd say he just was a working man, and then and I knew practically every old person going down the street, coming back up the street. It was a lady that she loved kids, and her name was Miss Queenie Cross, and she had a baseball team where kids couldn't play baseball on the front of the park. We had our own team from Iota, theater, and place down by Susan Roebuck Warehouse, and that was our team, because we couldn't play out on the front of the park because what you call it, the greater players played out there. So, and now I say, we had to grow. Well, I grew up with respect for all my elders, seniors. Uh, and like I say, we had a house full of kids, and my mother, like I say, she worked every day. Uh, every day we never missed dinner. I had went to school hungry because there was so many kids in school at that time by my parents, because I had 7 brothers and sisters up under me, and I had 6 that was older than I was. So, like I say, and I said my mother, she worked every day.
What did she do?
She was a maid. She was a maid. She had to, she went to worked in the white people house, she worked in Caucasian houses for years and years and years and years and years. So,
Do you know where those Caucasians lived? Where your mom worked?
oh, the lady she worked for the longest was called Miss Walker, and she lived over in, I'm gonna say, Homewood back then. She caught the bus every day going up there and coming back. I remember when she had, it cost her 35 cents a day to go both ways. So, and my oldest sister, I think she worked for at the lady house, but that lady wasn't doing them but beating her, and money wise, you know what I'm saying? Because like I said, she would work for her, the lady would pay her, but after she paid it, the lady started claiming her as a tax, for tax purposes.
As a dependent.
Yeah, as a dependent. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Mm-hmm.
No worries. You mentioned your mother and sister working for whites, Caucasians.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you become aware of the color line between whites and blacks?
Around the age of, let's say, 10, About I had to be about 12 then, between 11 and 12. But anyway, tell that story. It was a guy in the community, and his name was Mr. Clarence Alexander, because he was like the guy that had the car on the street, you know what I'm saying? So he was taking his friend. He had to take his friend. It was I never forget it. It's on Friday, a weekend, and he was taking his friend to. He had to take him up to, I think it was Kentucky, somewhere near Kentucky. And he asked me, he said, "Well, Tyrone, you gonna ride with me?" And I said, "Yeah." So we left that. It was late that Friday, about 10 o'clock that Friday night. We didn't get no further. When we left Iota, we didn't get no further than over here to Elyton Village, which was all Caucasian then. Before we can get to where he was going down that road to Elyton, from Elyton Village, police pulled us over, which was two white officers, Caucasian officers, and they pulled us over. They took Mr. Clarence to jail. They took Mr. Rowland. They took him to jail, and they took me down to the city jail, and they put me out the car and told me, "Boy, you know where you live. You know where you live at, so go home." And I walked from the city jail home, and that was late at night.
What had they done, or what had?
I couldn't tell you that this day. I think what the police said was that I smell alcohol, and that's when they did that after they pulled him over. But Mr. Clarence, he got out of jail early that morning. Him and Mr. Rowland went and got his car, and he left and went on to his destination.
Do you remember there being alcohol?
No, I knew Mr. Clarence drank, but I don't. That night, I don't think he was drinking that night.
Not to put words in your mouth, do you think this was a trumped up charge?
I do. Back then, I could tell you stories about things that happened in that community with the blacks. Like I knew a guy, he come up with some of my older brothers and stuff. His name was Eddie Wallace. He lived on Iota Avenue. And he worked at Edward Chevrolet. And he would borrow a car to drive home from when Edward was on the south side, and come home for lunch. And when he, get through eating lunch, he'll go back. So this particular day, Eddie Wallace drove home and started back, and they pulled him over on the south side. I forgot what street Edward Chevrolet was on then, but anyway, they shot Eddie Wallace, killed Eddie Wallace. I never forget it because I was back then. We was in the 3-room house, and back then I was sleeping with my sister. And when they had his funeral, they used to have funerals on the porch back then. Bodies on the porch. Sit your body on the porch. And Eddie Wallace is sitting up on the porch, and my sister and went to the funeral, and she screamed and hollered all night long because they shot the boy in the head, and it was swell up. And that wasn't the only one. And I remember a guy named Sam Jackson. He got killed up there when Bruno was on the south side. And he was an artist. He's good at art, really good. And police killed him right there at Bruno's, shot him for a false move they say he made. They told him to put his hand up. He put his hand up and he turned. And when they turned, they shot him in the side, killed him.
Sounds like a dangerous maybe not just Titusville, sounds like Birmingham was a dangerous place for black people then.
It was back then, because like I said, it's memories still in my mind about certain things, because I remember when the police department was all white, all white. I remember that myself. I remember when before the marches that started. Uh, I remember when they used to just come over and tell me they would use the word nigger all the time. Back then. That's when Bull Connor was commissioner, because he stayed commissioner several years, and like I said, I had family that had dealings with police, white police too. So it's so much about them that I didn't like. I remember the young lady when the voting rights came up. I remember her, Miss Maggie. Her name was Maggie Coleman, and she came when she was going around, walking around in the community, signing up black people to vote. I remember that distinctly, because she signed my mother and my father up to vote. She signed her mother and father up to vote. You know, and after I came of age, that's one of the first things I did. I registered to vote. Because like I said, it was so it's just, not only was we killing one another, but they was killing one another and doing wrong things. You know, uh, uh, up until the early 2000s. I can go back as further than that, but I believe I had a nephew. I believe police killed him. They cut him up like black people did it, and left him at somebody's house. So, like I say, I don't have hatred for people, because all of us was created equal. I don't hate, but I did like what they stood for.
Do you remember, and did you ever encounter going to places where there were white only water fountains or white
Sure,
only restaurants?
sure. I, One of the biggest stores downtown was Sears and Roebuck, and they displayed the water fountain as white and black. So we used to walk from Titusville to town, and when we get to town, we stop and get some water or something like that. I remember distinctly. They got white and black bathroom. They got white and black water fountains. I can remember when I started up the Ingalls Iron Works in '71. I went in there to use the bathroom. The guy, it was a white guy, older white guy, come in the bathroom and, hey, he said these words directly to me. Hey boy, you ain't supposed to be sitting on this side. I'm wondering who you talking to, because I'm a full grown man. Hey boy, you do not supposed to be sitting on this side. I told him, just wait a minute, I'm done. When I get done, I'll see about you. So by the time I can get done, clean myself up, he done took off and ran. The same guy that told me that, it wasn't 2 days later, a black guy whooped him up there, going to the locker, to take a shower. It was just it was just that segregated in the '70s.
So what year was this? I mean, obviously this is when you were working. It was in the '70s.
In '71, because I started up there in '71, stayed up there until they closed the place down. My father worked up there. I had a brother who worked up there. Also, my brother-in-law worked there, and at one time I had moved to California when I come out of high school in '67. I went to California, and I had a brother that killed in California for dating a white woman. But anyway, the guy shot him in the back of the head. But anyway, about that story, he was dating a white girl, and he come out out of the restaurant, and they shot him in the back of the head. Up there was a white man that did that. So it wasn't only prejudice here, it was prejudice there, practically anywhere you go.
Were you aware of that prejudice that went beyond Birmingham, but did that perhaps open your eyes to that reality?
Not really, because it was a different thing. Because I dealt with white people, and they was more perceptive to black people than they were here in the South. I was talking about the California thing. They was more perceptive than the whites that was here, because when I came back to Birmingham, nothing seemed like nothing had changed, not much. They just getting where we still live separate here. A lot of us, a lot of people do. And like I said, they just quick to call you nigga now than they would back then. You know what I'm saying? Because I think, it's not that I have anything against white or Caucasian people, whichever way they want to be called. Because I have family. My brother was married I got a brother that was married to a white woman, and he has 2 kids by this young lady. And like I say, sometimes you have to begin. You have to. I put it as the old man would say. You have to pray sometime about things that you go through or going through or have been through. And you have to let it go. And that's what I be trying to do. Let it go.
How easy is it to let go of that kind of treatment, that kind of hatred?
Only through prayer. Only through prayer can we deal with those situations, and we have to just put it all in the hand of God. That's what I try to do. I put my trust in Him, and then ask Him to help me to do these things.
As you were growing up, were there places that perhaps your parents told you can't go there?
Several. I tell you that it's a story. I use the Christmas holidays. It's which is one that everybody loved Christmas. And back then, everybody believed in a Santa Claus, a white Santa Claus, black Santa Claus. Didn't know what. Even one time, at one time in my life, I played Santa Claus up to Memorial Park for a kindergarten class when my kids was in school and stuff. But to make a whole long story short, we didn't get a chance to go downtown much. Only around Christmas when we wanted to go to the Christmas parade or something like that. And back then you can go down to when Pizzits and places like that, they decorated store windows and stuff. And it was so, let me see, I think it was 6 of us, would go downtown. With my mom, and we would have to walk from Titusville to downtown, 2nd Avenue, because we didn't have the money to get on the bus. Mom wasn't gonna pay. Like, oh, no, we ain't paying no 6 plus. That was a dime for a dime. That's 60 cents plus her. That's 70 cents for us to get on the bus. So you know, what I'm thankful about back then, back when we figured out Santa Claus, you know, he wasn't no white man in a suit, which I always had to grow up and learn that. It's just the opposite. We figure out your parents got to do, your parents did that, and mom didn't have a whole lot, because like I said, when you're trying to feed eight or nine people that's still in the house, that lives at the house, you know, you're gonna catch it then. You know, I understand what I'm saying. So like I said, when we was younger, that's the funniest thing. We just all had to hold hand, walk downtown. We get downtown from Iota all the way to Second Avenue. But we had a shortcut we had to go through behind Ingalls Iron, what we used to call Hobo Valley. We walk, we get downtown. You can't stop and ask for nothing, because you know mom and them already been through this. Don't stop and ask for no water. Don't stop and do this, because it's still prejudice down there. So that's the way we made it.
Did your parents openly talk about racism?
No, no, nope. That's the thing we never talked about, because my mama, she worked as a maid practically all her life. All her adult life. My father worked at place. When he came to Birmingham, he started at the city of Birmingham on a garbage truck, and I think back when he started, he said they was paying him, I think it was 75 cents an hour. Run behind garbage, and mom, I could say she did her work in the domestic work, at Miss Walker. And Miss Walker treated her like, Miss Walker, she treated her like more like a sister than a maid at times, because she had, because she stayed by her side. She knew mom's situation, That's,
Did you view Miss Walker as the norm among whites, or a bit of an aberration?
She wasn't a norm. I would say a bit of an aberration, because like I say, I think it was a love thing between her and my mom, because like I said, whatever mom needed, she always saw to her getting it or having it.
When you were in school, by the way, what grade school did you attend?
Washington Elementary.
Of course. For where you live, only makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What are your recollections about what you were taught about history as relates to African Americans?
Hardly anything. Really, we didn't start learning about Black Americans until I got to Elyton. And I think we was in about just about a junior. Should have been a junior in the 11th grade up there. And like I said, everything when I went to Washington, it's about Caucasian American, white arithmetic, white this, what was it? The books that we started in: See Sally Run, Ron Dick Run, James Spot. It's all Caucasian, and nobody in those books looked like us. No one looked like us.
Did you ever think about that? That I'm not represented on these pages?
Yes. Not until, yes, after I got older, because like I said, and it's some goal, but I remember well, I mentioned her name earlier, Maggie Coleman. She was a teacher and she's one of the sweetest ladies I ever knew. And when she started teaching, cause she taught primary school, and she came up before she was much older than I am, and she had those same books. I went out to her house, her and her husband, and visited her, and she had the same books that we was taught out of, rather, in elementary schools. Sally, Dick, and Jane. Run, Sally, run. All that stuff. Spot. Everything I said it, she had those same books, but she used them as a prop when she was teaching.
What are your early recollections, or perhaps even dealings with the Ku Klux Klan?
My early recollection. Dealing with the Ku Klux. I'm gonna have to say when I got up to Ingalls, when I started working, because like I said, the only Caucasian people we saw in Titusville back then was the insurance man, the Raleigh man, people like that. That's when you see white people go to Sam's store. And now his wife was so prejudiced. They was Caucasian.
You say she was prejudiced.
She throw your money back at you. Get change from her. She throw your money back on the counter and stuff. She was really prejudiced, and she showed her. There wasn't no shame. She showed hers.
It wasn't covert.
Nope. She showed her. Like I said, they didn't want her in there too much, because like I said, she was practically really, really not to be a full Caucasian.
Full Caucasian? What are you saying?
A white person. Because I think they was Italian, like something like that. This is skin lighter. Yeah. I think that's what they was, Italian. The children was decent, but because that same story. Her kids come out and play with the black people on the lower end, that lower end down there. And like I said, and the lady, when I said Mary, her daughter grew up with blacks right across the street from her. Because Mary, at Mary's store, they had she had one daughter. Like I said, she grew up with the Strappers right across the street from her. So like I said, she never did show any prejudice, when she came into the store.
Did you or anybody from your family take part in any of the mass meetings that took place in the 60s, thereabouts?
No. The answer to that, no. Because the older part of my family, they moved to California. And the younger part, back then, they figured it was straight. So I was just stuck in the middle. Like I said, I'd never been a person that would, try not to bring judgment on anyone, try to stay straight. Like I said, I turned 74 today, and I never had a stint in nobody jail. And I think I mentioned that to Miss what her name supposed to come out here with you?
Paula.
Yeah, Miss Paula. That she asked me did I march or anything. I told her no, because my father, my mother, the jobs that they had, that he had, that's the first thing. The boy, y'all can't go marching, y'all can't do this, you can't do that, because the peoples that he worked for was prejudiced. If you got a child more than they give, if we gonna fire you, They always have used scare tactics, because I see things really didn't change until started changing until the 80s, you know, and up.
What did you do at Ingalls?
I When they closed down, I was a fitter, what they call a fitter, tack welder. I read blueprints. You know, I learned how to do the white man job. In other words, where they got those jobs was held for white people back in those days. You know, so I got it there, and I learned how to do read the blueprints and tack weld, a little this and a little that. You know, operate a machine. You know, something like that.
When you were young, let's say grade school and the like, maybe even when you were in high school at Oman, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What did I want to be? I wanted to go to Army. Be That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the first one of my father's son out of the 8 boys. I wanted to be the first one to go to the Army. And no, I didn't do that. I couldn't get in. So what else would I tell you? That's when I was in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And this was it'll tell you the date, what that was. It's 56, 57. 56, 57. This is my brothers, two of my brothers, and I. And this was in, these are old pictures here. This was in 57. And this one here, this one was in 60. That's me and my brother. I call him twin because, like I said, we be the same age for a month.
Sure.
Because his birthday is in August. His mine don't come until September. This is my children, my nephews and nieces. Our nephews and nieces at Gunman out of Lutheran Village. This one right here is myself. No, that ain't that what I'm trying to say now. Yeah, well, myself is on there, and my brother, I got a brother on there, and two neighbors. And this here is, that's my mother-in-law and father-in-law.
Okay.
Yes. And these two that's on this is my best friends. One has deceased, and that's Walter Jackson and Elijah Craig. This here is my mother-in-law and her sister.
Okay.
And like I said, I showed you that one.
Well, let's talk a little bit about those pictures.
Okay.
Those are precious memories. At that time, what kind of future could you envision for people who look like us?
Future envision like us, people that look like us back in then. I have friends that became what I thought they would be, like Lawana, Gangs, or I know Maggie, which Coleman, she was a teacher. Her husband, he retired as a county county detective. I can't think now. I said Baker Coleman. me, a guy could tell, I told anybody, tell anybody I wanted to be in the service. I never did make it. I'd say out of the 8 boys, none of us never been in the service. So, and I have several friends, made it, did professional, did professional work. That like Elijah Craig, this guy I just showed you. He went into service and he was a chef, and after he come out the service, he worked for the Red Cross, and I hope, I'm trying to think of all the people that I grew up with that did great in their life.
Did you or could you, when you were a child, envision a point where racism and prejudice would not permeate your world?
No, no. When I moved over here, it was still a mixed neighborhood.
Here being Inslee.
Inslee, yes, over here. And when I got when I said this house is right, the lady that lived next door, she was a white, she was Caucasian, and she didn't stay here a month after we moved in here. Then you go to the next 2 houses, those black. Then the lady up on the corner, it was another white person. They ran my son home when he was younger, talking about what he had done, which he hadn't done nothing. He come back home, said, "Daddy, that lady called me a nigger up there." That's the way this community was. When we moved to Inslee, and we moved down in this part of Inslee, it was supposed to have been segregated. I think it's about one white man still live over here, in this community. So I can say, it never. I said when I moved over here, this JCCO was all white. It was white. It was the school was a Catholic school, and they went from the first grade to senior high school right there in that small building. And the nuns that lived in the convent as in front of me, they moved. So I say, it was some, it was some decent people here. And then I said, and now we don't, this over there now, what's over there now, it's nothing but Hispanic. Practically the in and out. That's what that church became.
What do you remember about the bombings in Birmingham, inclusive of course the 16th Street bombing?
I went to school with a couple of those young ladies, because we was all in Washington school practically together, especially the Marshall girl, and the one that's she's partly blind now. She's around our age. She was down at Washington school also. I remember that, but that was sad, really sad, because of like I said, it's not it's the way it was done, and I say, what I'm trying to say, what I want to say, is that you can't take two wrongs and make it a right, because I wouldn't even try, because that way, I said, I'm glad. I am so glad that Cherry, I think the guy that was Cherry, one of the white guys, I'm glad they got him and still won't let him go. I hope they don't never let him go. I hope he's dead somewhere. And it's the wrong feeling, but it's just a true feeling, because I say, that was an awful Sunday. That was awful.
Do you remember where you were, what you were experiencing that day?
If I'm not mistaken, I think I was in church. I was in church.
Church where?
St. Mark's. St. Mark's. Like I said, we wouldn't. I as a whole, my family, we wouldn't allow. From me down, we weren't allowed to tarry too far from home. You know, when most everything that happened in our life, it had to be in the community. You know, because we belonged to St. Mark's, which is in the community of Titusville. We went to store in the community. We shopped at a place called, well, I mentioned Green Front, because they actually they used to let you charge groceries down there. And one time, my father go down there and to pay the bill, and you got a $300 bill for groceries. You know, that's how come Dad grew everything that he wanted. We had chickens on the yard. We had turkeys on the yard. You know, he had to feed all of us. So because there's always somebody there at the house.
Do you have any knowledge or recollection of the Freedom Riders?
To yes, to a certain extent, I read about it a lot, and to be honest about that, I would have loved to march or being a freedom rider uh, in that aspect. But my father, I can see, he was on a job that if any of us did any of that, that's it. He had to go. And I see he worked there until he retired. And I say I was there 21 years until they closed down. And we, as a family, we always respected what Dad's wishes because we was brought up like that. And my mom, I could say, she worked there every day, and I said the oldest one always had to look after the youngest one. When you got anywhere from anywhere from 6 to 10 people staying at your house, and that's including two nephews, you know, somebody have to look at all of them. And all those guys, some of my, I can say I had 6 up under me, and plus the 2 nephews. I had to learn how to cook. I had to learn because Daddy used to walk. We stayed so close to Ingalls Iron. Daddy walk home every day to lunch, and what he would eat for lunch was a scrambled egg and a cup of coffee, and back to work he gone. So you know, so yeah, I said we wouldn't allow only way we was can see things, hear things about it. We had to see it on TV, hear about it on the radio, see the wrongdoing after they then wrote it in the Birmingham news.
Do you remember, or what do you remember about Emmett Till and his murder?
Lord, I read about it. I read about it. And Jack said that was one of the saddest things, and they just now getting justice for it. And I said, I said I read about it. It's just sad to me, and I didn't, know that much about it. But I said what I read is just awful.
Did you perhaps see that Jet magazine where he was pictured?
Yes, yes, it did. And when he did that, kid, uh, it's no way to describe it. Not to see a human body the way they saw. They did that kid for nothing, and and still, my thing. I don't know. I think that lady she's still living, but I think she moved north. I think it was just sad because I say I can imagine that happened to one of us back in those days, you know. But like I said, we were separated back then. You know, we weren't allowed in their communities, and they wouldn't allow too much in our community. Like I said, when we had when insurance people came over there, they were white, but they came make sure they came in daylight. They collected their money and left in daylight. Nobody said nothing to them. And they gone back to their community. But to do what they done to that kid, you know, that's a hard pill for anyone to swallow if they looked at it, you know, the thing in Jack magazine.
Sure. What are your recollections and feelings of George Wallace? And you laugh.
He a trip. He sold himself. He sold himself to the wife. Because I said if he hadn't got shot, he'd have been president. If he hadn't got shot, he would have been president. Because today, let's take today for instance. As blacks, we still don't get the recognition that we need when it comes to voting. Because like I said, if I'm looking at thinking about the district maps that they made, they came way short of what was needed to divide for the blacks and the whites. And yeah, I can say, and you got people like Tommy Tuberville up there raising all kinds of hell about nothing. I don't even see how he became a senator. That man don't mean blacks no good. I didn't like him when he was a coach at Auburn. I don't like him now. I don't like him. He's wrong because there's nothing good come out of his mouth. There's nothing good come out of his heart. He's poison.
The Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. Do you remember him? Did you experience him?
I never experienced it, but I remember it. I never experienced it. If I'm thinking right, that's the one he got bombed.
He did.
Yeah.
His home
yeah.
His home was
Bombed.
And he was the Birmingham leader.
Yes.
Of the movement.
Yeah.
He was Birmingham's leader of the movement.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because I think the first house got bombed. I think it was on the hill over here. Yeah, yes. Yep, I remember.
What do you remember about and what did you feel when John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated?
It's a sad day. Sadness. I was at school, Urban High School. And I remember, I can't think of the girl name now. I seen her running down the hall, screaming and hollering. They killed our president. They killed our president. And I seen one girl, she jumped out the window at Urban because they had the windows kind of up. You had to push them up, kill her there.
When she said they killed our president, did blacks at that point view him maybe as the first president who truly cared about them?
I think so, pretty much so. I think so. Because they said, I think he was one of the first presidents to put a black in his cabinet. I forgot who it was though, but like I say, Kennedy, he was, I think he was a Jew, but I can say I don't think he considered himself as a white man, and But the thing about it, I think he was for equal rights for all. I think that in a way set Martin Luther King off, you know, on the journey that he took, for freedom and justice. If I can make that statement.
As bad as it felt when President Kennedy was killed, how bad or worse did it feel when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated?
It's just as bad to me. They cut a man that was not only for his people, but he was for all peoples. He did at all his speeches. I never heard him say a word against white people per se. I never seen him try to block anybody from doing anything like George Wallace did when he stood in the door of the University of Alabama to keep the black out of there, and never heard of King doing anything that was against people of George Wallace's race or spoke against them.
Obviously, decades have passed since you grew up in Titusville.
Mm-hmm.
Has Birmingham progressed?
Yes, I would say so. Yes, to an extent, because of the people that they got in office these days. Don't get me wrong, now, because some of us is just as bad as some of the whites. Some of us is just as selfish as the white was. I think about just take it from recently. This guy Plump. I used to see this guy over in Titusville at all the little league games and stuff, and look what he done. Him and his compadre, and I don't even know the lady, but I knew Plump because I seen Plump and been around Plump, and he was always advocating things for the youth, for the youth. But what possessed him to take that kind of money from a community and try to, break it down and so she can get a piece and he can get a piece?
I remember you saying that the doctor who brought you into the world was named Plump.
Yes.
Were they related?
I couldn't say. I never did ask that. But like I said, he used to be, like I said, he used to be at all the park. I mean, he used to be up to when they was playing baseball up there at Memorial Park all the time. And he saw a minute of kids come through there. And like I say, in the way, it's altogether different, the way that we blacks struggled during the days back when we had to go out there and sell, have a barbecue, something like that, to make money for our kids, because everybody didn't have money. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way I look at Plump, because he set up things. Then he started to get the more money he got, the bigger he became. So
in the 60s, we sang,
Yep.
"We Shall Overcome."
Yes.
Have we?
Now that's a good hard question. Have we? To a certain extent. not all, we hadn't came where we should be yet. Some of us still crawling, just starting to walk. You know, there's a lot of things that as being senior citizens around here, especially the black, being from Titusville, and as I said, everybody would think Titusville was a big time neighborhood, you know. But like I said, I tell anybody, it was segregation in Titusville among the blacks. To me,
where was that evident?
Say for instance that I'd say across the street for people, and I'd say we was like this as long as we, yeah. But to go to their church, you had a church. I take New Pilgrim for instance, which is one of the largest church in Titusville, and people, when you go into New Pilgrim and walk through the doors, and people all want to turn around and look, who is this? You know, I'm just being honest. You know, standing. Oh yeah, these niggas that came out of their place. He need to go back to their place. You know what I'm saying? It was because it's prejudice among the blacks just as much as whites didn't like us. You know, and some of the, like I say, we segregate from one another. We separate from one another. I'm sorry. But when we separate from one another, we separate from God. So like I said, I try not to be prejudiced towards no one, because like I said, if you had parents that raised 15 children and didn't know where your next meal was coming from, you know, you learn a lot. And like I said, my parents, we had at one time, when all 15 of us was there at that house. Plus my sister, older sister, had 2. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, it hurts my heart to see a hungry child. My mama taught us, my father taught us, feed the hungry. A kid couldn't walk down the street and be hungry. A kid couldn't knock on the door during Halloween time and say trick or treat and didn't get anything. And like I said, it's prejudice, you know, and on in any neighborhood. Not only prejudice from white, it's prejudice from blacks, because there's a lot of places that I have gone and couldn't say or do what they was doing. And the other thing I want to say about that, I have to keep my mind open, because like I said, I would want a kid to knock on the door and say, "Mister, could you give me a piece of bread, or could you give me $1? If I got $1, here." You know what I'm saying? I done seen the hungry, because I done been hungry myself. I have.
If that child at your door were white,
I couldn't turn it away, because he's a child.
we talked before about the Titusville of your youth, how everybody there was an extension of family, at least in that part of Titusville where you were.
Correct.
Everybody knew one another, and there was a comfort level there. You don't live in Titusville now, but you're familiar with Titusville. Describe the Titusville that you see today.
People's not as friendly. People, I see. You don't know. They don't know their neighbors anymore over there. They do not know their neighbors anymore. Because back when when I was over there, where I grew up at, I can walk down. I walked to the store because the store was about a block away. When I go to the store, I spoke to everyone I went when I came down the street, and then when I go back up, I speak to those same people. Because if I didn't, somebody gonna tell my mother or father, George, that boy didn't speak. That boy didn't speak. Come here, boy, you've been to get a whooping. That's it. I had to respect. Yeah, I say I had to. I grew up to respect my elders. I grew up to respect and know my friends. As a matter of fact, the lady I'm married to, I've been with her 53 years. I married her. She come from out of Titusville. And yeah, I say I always I knew people from, like I said, from Theta, Kappa, Omega, Alfred. I knew people all around through there. And I could tell you something that hardly anybody know that about Titusville. There's a cemetery over there too, on Apple Street. I know you ain't never heard it, but it's a Jewish cemetery over there. I can remember back in the day where we used to have this guy. He used to be a vegetable man there, but he was also, before he became the vegetable man, he was a bootlegger also. He had a horse and a wagon. He lived up the street on what we call the rich side of the street, which is the side we moved on after, this lady died. We moved in the home house up there. And Mr. Ben Bailey, he used to call him Mr. Ben Bailey. He sold vegetable and stuff, and coal and stuff, to drive his wagon up and down that street. Come back, take his horse out off that wagon and put him out there in that yard. I knew him. I knew this man named Mr. Dave Daniel. He had a bull. He worked up there at Ingalls Iron way before I even got old enough to work anywhere. He used to take that bull and walk him up the street to the field, bring him back down the street. On the backside of Memorial Park, that used to be a merry-go-round, a swing, and the monkey bars you could go up. That's what the swimming pool was there also when they first put it there. Like I told you earlier, it was always full because everybody went to Memorial Park to do whatever they want. But we stayed on the Iota side. We had our own thing we did. Go to the back of the park, we did our swing, we did our merry-go-round. And you can see me, and one time Jack said, if you believe in ghosts and stuff and haunts and stuff back in the days, this guy, he used to tell me, yeah, and back in the day, you seen Ben Bailey back there. Mr. Ben Bailey, they had go and walk down the street before they put street lights on, and all that stuff. Walked through there one day, that's a doggone, that's something white flying around. I ran over there. I ain't stayed but a half a block, less than a half a block. So, it was something. I tell you about Jackie, mom. Now this lady, she was something else. I think about it and I laugh today about it. And every day, because there was so many boys in my house, she'll called Nagado to come over there. She said, send her son over there, her grandson rather. She said, go tell Mr. George to send me one of them boys over here. I never could understand that stuff. So one of us had to get up out of bed. I don't care how early or how late. You got to go walk all the way through her house and come back out the front door. So why did they do that? That's because of her superstition. We had that there. I had the lady that stayed, Miss Portia, Miss Queenie Cross. She lived on the corner, the last house next to the big field before you get to Ingalls, and that's where we practiced and played baseball. Now she didn't have but one daughter, but she was just as sweet as she could be. Lady can cook a cake bed, make you sit around and just beg, you know. And Miss Portia, she was one of the sweetest ladies over there. Cause like I said, she took time with the people, the boys and stuff, for the baseball team. Only one that done that. You go on down the street where the Scotts live. From her, we had a guy that cut hair there, Mr. Malley and Miss Lily. We had, when he had to do, well, my daddy, he always kept some clippers. You ever seen that? Yeah, we did that. He did that. And Mr. Malley, if he couldn't get it, go over to Papa do it. And the Freemans, we had, like I said, the street was full of kids. The street was full of kids. We had, I remember when they put Golden Flakes back there. I don't know whether y'all heard of that, but it was a building on theater right there. That was McHale's and Robinson. And they used to break in that all the time to get the drugs out of it, steal drugs out of it on that street. And they found it because they sold that to Golden Flakes, and they, got all of that. They had, you going on down the street, they had houses on one side, Golden Flakes. That's what you asked me about the bowling alley. That's what bowling alley was down from from Golden Flakes. That was they bought that. They put potatoes in that. They put the potatoes in there. And the guy, like I told you, Mr. Pete Chapman, he ran that. Behind that was Sears and Roebuck. There's Sears and Roebuck warehouse back in the day. So I see, there's a lot of history over there. When people, like I said, the old place or what Ingalls Iron Works, it used to be they used to start steel out back there. And before they got Golden Flake all up and built, it was that field used to be what they call Red Diamond. That's where blacks used to go back there and play ball. Some of the Negro leagues started playing ball up there.
Two questions cross my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Some people have told me of a golf course in Titusville. Does that ring any bells with you? Maybe not. In the area, like a field in the area of Loveland Village. And if you don't worry.
I don't know nothing about that part. Because like I said, back down in Loveland Village, I wasn't allowed to go that far, no way. I knew a guy that used to come out of Loveland Village. He used to be a caddy master. We used to call him a caddy master, but he worked over there off Green Spring Highway over there in Homewood. And his name was Harry. I don't know whether Harry's still living or not, but I'd say I ain't never known Loveland Village to have a golf course down there.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah. And Memorial Park, they had Larry Langford used to come up there all the time and play tennis. If you didn't know that, he played tennis up there quite a bit. Also, he was one of the paper boys up there, through there. Him, Reginald Brown, you ever heard of him? Mm-hmm. He's pastor at Green Liberty. Is that Green Liberty? No, that's what you call it. Elyton.
South Elyton.
Yeah. He threw papers up there.
Dropping names. Does the name Bill Terry Jr. mean anything to you?
Very much. His wife was named Martha Maddox. He was one of the first that got killed over in Titusville in the service. They buried him in a place, I forgot, I think they took him over in Charlotte. And I forgot who was president then. But anyway, he wanted to be buried in Elmwood, the first black. He was the first black that was buried in Elmwood. They buried him, like I said, over in Charlotte, like you said, and then they had to sue Elmwood because it was all white. There wasn't no blacks over there. And I forgot who was president. They told him to dig him up and put him where he wanted to go. His wife, as a matter of fact, his wife used to stay behind us. You know, when we said that she grew up on Carver Avenue. She grew up on Carver. His wife was named Martha Meadows, but Martha Terry, they had one kid.
Who was born, who he never met because he was...
Yeah, he was born when he went to Vietnam. Yeah. I tried, man. I wanted to be the first boy to go to out of my dad. Like I said, it was 8 boys of us. I wanted to be the first one to go in the service, and I volunteered. Man, it's a funny story that it was me and about 6 other us. We shot up from school, stayed out of school. We gonna join the army. We gonna go to Vietnam. And no one was going straight to Vietnam. So all 7 of us went down there, and all 7 they sent all of us back.
Why?
Because of because of what we had. I had a weak kidney. They said, you know, how they take us, man. That was a trip down there. All 7 of us went back. So we got back to Birmingham. All of it went to stop because the state store used to be on 6th Avenue. It's a funny story, but we got back to Birmingham. All of us got a 5th of wine, drank the 5th of wine. Everybody went, Tyrone, y'all didn't go. Man, them folks didn't want none of us.
You wanted and were...
I wanted to be the first son.
But you were determined to join the Army.
Correct.
To be part of the military. For the United States of America.
Correct.
But it was the United States of America that, as far as you could see, wasn't for people who look like you and me.
No.
So why were you so doggedly determined to join an army that didn't represent you?
It was something to do that day. It's something to do. That was the first. I went when I went to I left here and I went to California. I tried it again, and back then they was giving you those classification cards, and they classified me. I think they classified me as 1F. They showed me your card. 1F. You go on back home. Got to go. Yep. So I had to tell no tale about that. Yeah. So I wanted to be the first boy to go to Army. Out of the 8 boys my dad had. Sure did.
I think that's got what I need. Is there anything that, again, you weren't here for all of it, but anything that you're aware that I'll be remiss in not adding or including?
I got a obituary back there with I think it's my grandfather. When he passed, I think he passed in 78. And I want y'all to just look at how many grandchildren and stuff that was his. Let me get that for you.